Cool. Hello. Right. So right from the start, it's worth saying I am myself not a Deliveroo driver, but I helped volunteer with the IWGB union, which is the Independent Workers' Union of Great Britain. That was the independent trade union that helped organise the strike of Deliveroo drivers last summer. So the IWGB was set up. It was originally a cleaners union at universities and outsourced cleaning workers around London. And a few years ago, they started, bike couriers started joining the union because bike couriers realised that they were being undercut, their wages were going down. Around the same time, a friend and I started talking to each other about Deliveroo. I'm sure everyone has ordered from them or know of the app.
How many people order from Deliveroo?
Surprisingly few people. I haven't either, to be honest.
They're good cooks, you see.
Yeah. But I started talking. We decided to do a recruitment campaign because we knew there were a large number of people working for them. They were hiring like crazy a couple of years. They still are, and we said, why can't they all just get in the union? I mean, ask yourselves, why have none of the big unions done a recruitment drive? Think about Unite or GMB. Why haven't they tried to recruit Deliveroo drivers? And it's like, this seems to be the precarious workers of our age, like some of the most exploited people. But we thought we were doing a bit of some experiments about a theory that's called conditional commitment, which is trying to bring back grassroots democratic control of direct action, essentially. So if you say you've got a certain number of people who are willing to take direct action, can you achieve your aims if say 100 people go on strike? We wanted to see if we could use that to encourage people to join a union who were in a precarious workforce. So we started surveying. I think I did an interview. I must have spoken to about 120 or so Deliveroo drivers just by going up to them on the streets. So we started to go back to basics. If you talk about trade union organising, the basics is being on the ground, talking to people who are working. So we were I was basically on the street corner outside restaurants trying to grab people who were picking up deliveries and going, hey, have you got a second? I want to talk to you, just ask you a few quick questions about your work. And we found out a lot of interesting stuff. For instance, I'll talk a bit about these pictures in a minute. But for instance, we found out that whereas Deliveroo like to advertise themselves as this flashy, cool, it's like students working for them part-time, like 20-year-olds on their bikes. The reality was that most people, as you can see from the pictures as well, are like middle-aged people supporting, working for Deliveroo is their main source of income. They work, many people I spoke to work 60 hours a week for Deliveroo. So for them, it's not a part-time job, it's a full-time job. They're probably supporting themselves and their families. A big group, probably majority, are Pakistani men. Almost all the workers are men. So in the sort of gender balanced Deliveroo adverts where there's usually men and women, it's like that is marketing by the company. But in actually speaking to the workers and asking them if they would be interested to join the union to negotiate better paying conditions, we got to know them. And we gathered a lot of data about how long they were working for the company, what they were doing, how many hours they worked per week. We then decided or the plan was for that to turn into a recruitment campaign. So we would ring up everyone we'd spoken to and said, look, we found 100 people who want to join the union. Would you be interested? Once 100 people have joined the union, we will begin negotiating with the company. The interesting thing is that we never got to that point because events sort of, got ahead of us. Independently of what we were doing, which was a recruitment campaign, speaking to the drivers, trying to recruit them. Also, I should say, Deliveroo market themselves as being about cyclists. The vast majority of the drivers are scooter drivers, like mopeds. Deliveroo started to change their pay, the way they paid the workers from from being having a base income per hour, an hourly wage, to pure commission wage, so they could only get paid per delivery, and that sparked off a wildcat strike. People, the drivers were basically themselves saying, we're not having it. And this was happening, I stress, independently of what we were doing. But the two came together because we had, by speaking to a lot of people, established these networks, and a lot of people have already begun joining the union. But the strike was initially started by people who weren't even in the union, like, as I say, wildcat. And you started getting pictures like this. These were the pictures that sort of got in the press that The Guardian published, and eventually, like, Jeremy Corbyn and the government were intervening in this campaign and commenting on it. But what I think we can learn, my sort of take-home message here is that you've got Deliveroo, which is essentially an app that combines supply and demand. You've got a demand among people who work in offices to have their food delivered to them, and then the workers supply the labour, just coordinated through the app. So if they stop working, it's like as with any other company. So you have both this high-tech thing, and you still have the basic relationship between the company and the workers. And there was a bit of a debate around the time of the strike among certain people who were saying, oh, look, this is like organising in the gig economy. It's something completely new. It's like cool. It's tech, something. And then you had the people who were saying, oh no, this is just exactly the same. It's just capital and labour relations. It's this has been going on for 300 years. What I want to illustrate with this picture, for instance, is how we can get a realistic view of the combination of these two views. What happened in reality was that obviously people stopped working. This has happened in every single strike for the past 5,000 years. And you get the wonderful scene where the sort of manager, this kind of middle manager bloke from Deliveroo, comes out and starts trying to negotiate with the workers in a mass meeting. And what happens when management meets workers in a mass meeting? They get ridiculed. And this went viral, and you had this video with a guy trying to, like, calm down, be reasonable, we'll pay you. And everyone is just laughing at him and throwing their demands. But there's another picture, maybe I can... But I mean, basically they had like a mass meeting on the steps of the Deliveroo office, and obviously mass meetings has been like the traditional way that workers have gotten together to make decisions for hundreds and hundreds of years.
So how did they know there was a meeting?
Precisely, yeah. But I want to point out this one as well, because I think one of that sign that he's holding up there, right, says no drivers, no Deliveroo. If you think about it, that is quite a radical slogan. And these are people, they have not been organised politically before. They, as I was saying, these are like middle-class men in their 30s and 40s who are just getting by, like earning their daily bread. But they understand that, like, the alienation, the precariousness of the situation. They also understand that it's because of them that Deliveroo exists. They say no drivers, no Deliveroo. They realise that they are more powerful than the company because the company depends on their work. So this is just a basic labour relation that has been going on for, as I say, millions of years. But the point was being, an interesting point as well, is that how the union was organising, and obviously, like, these pictures were getting viral through social media. One of the things that helped the strike carry on was a fundraiser that we set up to support the IWGB, to basically raise a strike fund that would compensate the wages that they lost when they weren't working. That raised £13,000 in about a week, mainly because it went viral through the campaign. And in between the workers, the way they got together to these meetings, the way they decided, because bear in mind, this is not like a factory workplace or an office where you meet your colleagues on a daily basis. You might meet some of the colleagues when you stop and have a coffee in between picking up deliveries. You'll sit and chat while you're waiting for the next delivery. But most of the people who are kind of working on your shift, you won't come across. But the way that the drivers were in touch with each other was through a WhatsApp group. So in your zone, you have a WhatsApp group where basically all the drivers stay in touch with each other. So there is an element of this like technology there that enabled a strike to happen that would not have happened even 5 years ago. So I think it's interesting to think about it from this point of view that like you have this age-old tactics, and here the boycott Deliveroo was going to be a hashtag, and like it was one of the tactics that you could get the consumers involved as well by saying, look, you know, if you stopped ordering from Deliveroo, it will harm them from. Yeah, and if you made your own dinner, you could donate some money to the crowdfunder to pay for the strike fund. I love that it says this is one of the things I had the privilege of being in the WhatsApp group, was how polite people were. That you can get from some of the pictures look quite hostile, with sort of people in bicycle helmets sort of or motorcycle helmets sort of surrounding some bloke. But like the drivers are the sweetest people. They were saying, oh no, don't insult each other. You know, we need to show that we're peaceful, that we just want to like get a fair deal from the company. So please boycott Deliveroo. But that was also like there's a social media campaign side of it, and we were very sort of conscious about the press relations and getting quite sort of sharp press releases that would get into that the media would soak up. Because I mean, this is one of the advantages, and I'll if I have time we can talk about that, the advantages that the Deliveroo drivers had from being like a household name. Like think, for instance, if there's a lot of delivery companies in London, Gin, for instance, you might have seen them, they've got blue boxes. You know, they are much less a household name. If they would try to get together and organise in the same way, a lot of people would say, oh, I've never heard of them. Deliveroo drivers had an advantage that people have already they had noticed Deliveroo as a social phenomenon. So that helped to make it a bit more viral, but still, the point I'm trying to make is this intersection between it. But then how does this? I should say that, and this particular strike was successful. They stopped that particular pay cut coming in that area. They ended up negotiating with the bosses and they won it. We can open up into these like the question of why does Deliveroo exist? It's an interesting one to finish on, because it tells us like the fact that people who work in offices use this app to order food to their offices rather than going down the stairs to the restaurant tells us something about like the wider trends in society. Perhaps it would be interesting to hear your views on that. But I mean, it might be possible to argue that actually like a service like this represents some type of efficiency. Like it is more efficient. Maybe it saves time somewhere. The problem is people are being desperately exploited by doing it. Like, would Deliveroo exist? If Deliveroo was fully automated, if it was machines delivering it, it would be a good, like most people would benefit from not having to spend time of their lunch break going down. The problem is that we have this service and people are like being paid less than minimum wage to do it. So is it possible to have this efficiency without exploitation? Maybe you could do it through workers' co-ops where the drivers own the thing together, or maybe you could do it from replace it, or from having as you know, what if, as I say, if it was drones doing the deliveries, but then you have the problem under capitalism that people will become unemployed. But you know, these are the questions that we might ponder. But when it comes to organising workers in logistics and food delivery, yes, it's totally possible and you can win.